At first, I was super excited about the 10 diverging and converging sketches. When I was a kid, my dream job was to be an inventor, making new things to solve problems in life. Although before HCDE, I had no experience as a designer, I often practiced with my brother, drawing comics together. He would draw one frame, then I would draw one frame, and so on. From this comic making, I learned not only how to draw stick figures really well in a way that created dynamic posture, I also learned how to keep creative. Somehow, doing these comics through senior year of high school led me to be able to come up with methods that would keep my creativity active. In our comics, our content mostly was slapstick comedy, but in some of the comics, there were theoretical designs that would make the people's lives easier or solve the problem at any cost. This proved great for the ideation assignment when it came up, since I already had some practice with coming up with ideas. I was going to originally focus my ideations around coming up with wacky and out-of-this-world vehicles and transportation systems that I usually did for my comics, but a few hours before I started the assignment, I realized that this ideation assignment was not all about coming up with the wackiest, craziest, or funniest ideas. It was about creating and refining ideas that were designed around the user's needs. This prompted me to think that the designs itself weren't important. It was the user's needs that determined what was a good idea and what was a bad idea. I decided to elaborate on the concept of the user's needs. What if I designed for something else than humans? I decided to branch out and do penguin-centered design and engineering. It would really exercise my ideation mind because this audience had a whole set of different needs and capabilities. I focused on sustainable commuting as my primary goal, but ultimately even the user's environment affected how the vehicles were sustainable and reduced congestion. For example, penguins can swim underwater to go places, adding a third dimension to the area that the vehicles could go. And the ocean ecosystem could provide viable sources of sustainable power, like geothermal, cyanobacteria, and krill. Also, tasty fish snacks were available everywhere for free. I chose my best designs based on how much those designs included these categories. Power systems, mobility, and snack harvesting were my top priority for picking out the most promising ideas, which were the Penguin Mass Transportation System and the PMTS Traveling Workplace. They both had a lot to do with each category, ultimately satisfying the user's needs the most. My main takeaway from this assignment was that no idea is a bad idea, as long as it is feasibly designed for the user. Working too close to mimic other products' concepts doesn't lead to new ideas, but working too much outside of the box, on the other hand, can too easily become unnecessarily cumbersome for the user. For my future projects, I have added another thing to think about, ultimately designing for the user in mind, not for myself. The user research project was a whole other ballpark for me. Never being the type to go out in the field, I was surprised when I found myself in the wild, wild west of Pike Place Market. So many things to see, so many new things to do. One thing that I found out about people in the wild is that they don't like to stay still at all. People are almost the farthest from ideal subjects to test on. They have lots of unpredictability and don't like to sit around doing nothing. It wasn't like the videos of kindergarten, where there were always perfect camera angles to monitor your subjects. Oftentimes, Jordan and I would have to either find people who were seated or chase down people that we were still writing about. That being said, the fact that people were always doing something was very good for collecting data. Even if people were waiting around, they were always on their phones, talking to another person, or looking around a room. They would exit the scene if they had exhausted their list of things to do. Based on these things, I realized that this was often a main problem of shops in large gathering areas. How do you keep a customer occupied in that space? If they lose interest, they leave. This posed a great design challenge for markets and shops, but even better, could the people be doing something productive in their spare time? Then, to avoid any bias, I wrote my report from the perspective of a spy working for a reptilian overlord on how to further improve human society. This exercise of reflexivity really helped me to think objectively about what people were doing and to see any design challenges based on repeated actions. Lastly, I included some sketches of some pictures that I took from my environment as I was traversing the market. This helped to visualize the scenes that I was in while compiling my yellow book notes into a report. They were fun to do too. I'm so glad that I didn't just stay inside watching the videos for my project. Going out in the cold and wet to record people in the field was so much more interesting. With every assignment in HCDE, my skills grow in how I can design effectively and empathetically. The user research can identify potential problems to fix in the real world, as well as provide background information and capabilities of the users. Then, ideation can come up with new and innovative ideas, then improve and refine those ideas to satisfy the design challenge, using the user data for reference as to what the user normally does. Paired with the prototyping and testing aspects of interaction design and usability testing, the process of creating a user-friendly deliverable from start to finish is becoming clearer and clearer. Ultimately, HCDE has been building up to designing with the user in mind, teaching me about what it means exactly for design and engineering to be human-centered.